Desengueño is the Spanish word for disillusionment, and that seemed a very appropriate name for a played-out mining village which had become a ghost town. I used to often go south of the border to visit some friends who operated a sea turtle research station for the Mexican government in the town of Baja de los Angeles. On one of these trips, they asked me to come along when they went to visit their friend, the Hermit of Desengueño. Back then, I also traveled up and down the Baja Peninsula of Mexico to research and write articles for a magazine called Baja Explorer. Yes, that's me standing next to my Isuzu Rodeo on one of my many trips to Baja. The magazine was in English for Americans who like to visit and explore that beautiful and almost untouched part of Mexico. The town of Desenuo had about 100 inhabitants when the copper mine was producing. In the 1930s, the Great Depression dropped the price of copper so low it was no longer worth operating the mine, and it shut down for years. During World War II, the demand for copper shot up again, and suddenly the ore was worth pulling out of the ground. When the war ended and demand dropped once again, the mine stopped being worth the effort, and everyone left town. Well, everyone except Ilian. He had lived alone in that town since 1946. A little side note, I have changed Ilian's name for the sake of this writing. I know he passed away long ago, so I have no way of asking his permission to write about him, although I did get him to sign a photo release when I met him many years ago. In addition to my sea turtle scientist friends, a few other people would come to see Ilian and bring him provisions now and then. Failing a visit from anyone, he'd snare rabbits, he knew which cacti were edible, he had a spring nearby for water. He also knew how to get water from certain cacti, like this giant one I posed with for scale. By the way, a cactus this size is probably well over 200 years old. But for a wider variety in his diet, he was dependent on friends and relatives. My friends suggested we might take Ilian some things, and we exchanged a large can of coffee and a carton of Marlboro for some bolo ties made of silver and turquoise. I wondered about the inequity of the swap, but Ilian said he finds silver and turquoise and trades it to some local indigenous peoples who do the silversmithing and jewelry making, and then trade the finished products back to him, which then he can trade for food and cigarettes and coffee. He doesn't have a coffee maker, or electricity to run one for that matter, so he makes his coffee every morning by grinding coffee into the bottom of his metal pot as he pours in water that he has heated over his fire. After he drinks the liquid, he flings the grounds out of the cup, and there, an arm's throw distance from his fireside, was a heap of more than 40 years of coffee grounds. Across the fire circle the other direction, an arm's throw distance, was a pile of 40 years of cans. He would heat a can over his fire, the actual can, cooking beans or corn or whatever in the can in which it came. Then he'd eat it out of the can, and when he was done, just fling the empty can into the pile without standing up from the fire. With a limited supply of water, it did save washing pots and dishes. All he had to clean up was his spoon. He has plenty of silver, copper, and turquoise, but they have no value if you can't eat them. So years later, I asked a jeweler friend to look at the bolo tie, and he estimated it was worth at least $300 worth of precious silver and semi-precious stones. Of course, I still have the tie safely packed away. Unfortunately, I rarely find occasion to wear it. Ilian showed us around his house and his town. His home was a mishmash of sticks from cacti, canvas, car parts, corrugated metal, 50-gallon drums, odd pieces of wood and fabric, and anything else he could find from which he could build a home. He poached what he could from the remnants of the town, very little of which was still standing at this point. This concrete block bears the name of the town, Desengueño. He kept very busy scouring the area for valuable resources, whether that was food or some minerals that he could trade for food. It was a simple existence, but he seemed much more content than most people I know who can jump in a car anytime and drive to the grocery store to replenish their pantry. He still went down the mine occasionally, a proposition that was too scary for me to want that tour of the looming death pit. Ilian was so weathered from his life outdoors, it was hard to place his age. Even if he was 20 when the mine shut down, he'd have to have been at least 65 now, but something about his movements made me think he was closer to 80. But he was a spry old man, so it was hard to tell. I asked why he doesn't go into town, and he replied, "I've been there." It's hard to argue with the simplicity of that statement. He did seem happy, happier than a lot of people I met in big towns and big cities. I've met a lot of quirky characters both in Baja and the rest of the world, but Ilian still stands out to me as someone who lived life completely on his own terms. He ate his meals when and how he wanted to. He answered to no one. He expected nothing and was grateful for what little came his way. On a subsequent visit, my sea turtle science friends told me that as Ilian's health got worse, relatives forced him to move in with them in the town. He didn't want to. He was perfectly okay with dying as he had lived, alone in his own domain. But when he did die in town, in civilization, if that's what it is, I'm not sure going out that way made him happy. I think we might all do well to strive to be happy with so much less. One of the many lessons I learned in my many travels to Baja was that if a man doesn't have any need for a big screen TV or a Mercedes-Benz, not having one doesn't make him poor. Could you live alone in the desert? Would being a hermit appeal to you? Let me know in the comments. And join me next time on Walt's Wanderings when we'll visit a somber but important site of some horrible American history at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Please like and subscribe and come along for the next adventure.